today's lecture of the surgery. The today's lecture of the surgery will be on the second part of the carcinoma of the stomach. In first part of the carcinoma of the stomach or the gastric carcinoma, we have completed the introduction of the cancer, the etiology, then its size, types, and the spread, isn't it? Now in today's lecture, we'll try to complete the clinical features of the gastric carcinoma, investigations, and the treatment of the gastric carcinoma. That will start with the clinical features of the gastric carcinoma. The clinical features in a gastric carcinoma are the variable from person to person, and these are mostly concerned with or its variation occurs with the progress of the disease. But you can understand the carcinoma is clinical. First of all, the disease as already we have been seen is commoner in the males. So that usually patient is a male and is seen into the people above the age of 45 years. Isn't it? But it's not uncommon in the younger group also. As you have seen, etiologic factors are there. It will be common in the younger also, but more commonly seen in the people above the age of 45 years and in the males are there. The features are variable and they are divided into these following groups. Group A, new dyspepsia. A person above the age of 45 years, previously healthy, and suddenly develops the vago dyspepsia. In other cases, the dyspepsia develops slowly, but in this, the dyspepsia develops suddenly, isn't it? And this is persistent. And the dyspepsia is caused by the associated chronic gastritis as well as the atrophic gastritis, resulting in the gross hypochlorhydria or achlorhydria. So there is the very persistent features in the early cases or in the new cases, and that is mentioned under the group A, persistent dyspepsia, persistent one. Then group B, the patients with the group B, they have the insidious groups are there, where the onset of these symptoms are developed insidiously, and these are number one is anorexia, second is asthenia, third is anemia. These are group B features are there, and the anemia is due to a chronic blood loss either or from the interference with the gastric hemopoietic factors, isn't it? It's a secondary anemia, either to what blood loss or to the interference of the gastric hemopoietic factors are there. So there's a group B. Then group C, pain. The pain is vague, discomfort in the epigastrium and constant in the nature. Don't have a relation with the food. Not either after taking the food or not relieved on empty stomach. As you have seen in gastric ulcers, they are relieved, pain is relieved when patient is empty stomach. While in duodenal ulcers, we have seen the pain is relieved after taking the food, but here the pain is persistent, isn't it? Then the group B, hemorrhages. Some patients may present the severe hemorrhages, either the hematomasis or the melena, isn't it? So this is the B group. Next one group is the E group, ulcer cancer. Here in this group, the features are which suggest that the chronic gastric ulcers has been turned into the malignant, isn't it? Here, what? Loss of periodicity. As you have seen in gastric ulcer, there is periodicity there. In periodicity is there. But here, this loss of periodicity means there is a persistent, continuous symptoms are there. Second, the sharp burning pain of the ulcer replaced by the dull aching pain. In the ulcers, there is sharp burning pain is there. But here the dull aching pain indicating that the gastric ulcer turns into the malignant one that. And the pain is constant in the characteristic. It is a prominent feature of the gastric carcinoma or any malignancy. Constant pain. Second, quick loss of the appetite. Quick loss of the appetite. Then the rapid loss of the weight. Isn't it? In the chronic ulcer, there is loss of the weight, chronic gastric ulcer, but there is a gradual loss of the weight. Here is a rapid loss of the weight. That is a group E. Then group A, obstruction. This obstructions occurs due to the more growth of the cancer. isn't it? Or the stenosis caused by the cancer. The first is the pyloric obstruction. In contrast to the adrenal stenosis, this is a quick onset and is rapidly fatal. As you have been seeing, the stenosis can occur in the peptic ulcer also there, causing the pyloric obstruction. But the stenosis develops gradually, so that's the obstruction also increases gradually. But here there is a rapid onset, sudden onset of the what? The obstruction, quick and rapidly fatal. Second, dysphagia. This occurs in cases growth obstructing the cardiac end of the stomach. And this dysphagia also develops the sudden and rapidly developing one there as compared to other conditions. Now group G, the lump. The lump is palpable. It may be the growth itself, the major part of the lump, however, made by the momentum wrapping up the growth. Second, the metastasis node. What is first? The lump, it's felt, it is due to the growth. Second, metastatic lymph nodes, it is involvement of the lymph node. If the cancer or malignancy extend to the lymph node, they get enlarged and that lump may also fail. Then the deposit on the omentum, if this cancer is deposit on the omentum, that also gives a lump. Then the dilated stomach above the growth, presenting the soft cricket ball swelling. See here, the cricket ball swelling, isn't it? Swelling or moving from left to right, as in cases of the pyloric stenosis, isn't it? So what happens? Last one feature of this group G. Group G, namely what? The dilated stomach. Means what happens if the stomach is there and obstruction is caused by the either lump or growth or by stenosis, caused by the malignancy. It causes distension of the proximal part of the stomach and move from the left to right. The next group of the symptoms are H group. Last one group is that metastatic group. Metastatic group means what? Where the cancer or the malignancy spread from the stomach to other organs of the body. And as you have seen, the most common and closer site first where the cancer gets spread from the stomach is a liver, isn't it? So in liver, it pain, jaundice and ascites. If it is spread to the liver or metastasis seen into the liver, it causes the pain in the right hypochondria, then the jaundice and ascites. And if it spread to the peritoneum, ascites. Then enlargement of the left supraclavicular lymph nodes. This is a very characteristic feature of the gastric carcinoma, remember. Enlargement of the left supraclavicular lymph node. This is a characteristic of the metastasis in the gastric carcinoma. The nodes located between the sternal and the clavicular heads of the sternomastoid muscles, which are also called the Virchow's node, are the particular importance. These are Troyer's signs. So these are group H symptoms which are developed due to the metastasis. Means these features, this one indicates us is a metastasis. Do you understand? So all these are the clinical features of the gastric carcinoma. Then from group E to group H. Now we'll go for the investigations there. Investigation for the gastric carcinoma. The first investigation for the gastric carcinoma is a blood examination, isn't it? Blood examination shows low hemoglobin, second low RBC count, and third high ESR. The low hemoglobin is due to loss of the blood, and even due to the patient not taking the food or due to dyspepsia and the dysphagia. That will lead to the decrease in hemoglobin in the RBC count there. The next examination, investigation is the occluded blood in the stool. Is almost always present in all cases. Isn't it? Almost present. Then the gastric analysis. The gastric analysis is for what? The chlorhydria or the secretion of the gastric juice there usually shows the gross hypochlorhydria. Hypochlorhydria, or in some of the cases is achlorhydria. There is no secretion of the gases. Why? Because there is a loss of the acid secretory cells are there, and that will result into the what? Hypo or the achlorhydria. Isn't it? Then blood in all the samples of the FTM analysis. Isn't it? You take the of hydrogen aspiration or contents of the stomach, it shows the blood containing that. Isn't mixed with the blood. Then the excess of the mucus due to chronic gastritis. Excess of the mucus due to chronic gastritis. So this gastric analysis. The next ones are the barium meal examination. I will look at the barium meal examination. There is a persistent feeling of the defect at the site of the growth. Means when you do the barium meal and given the barium to the patient, when it reaches the stomach, so what happens? There is a persistent filling defect. Why? At the site of the growth of the carcinoma, there will not be the filling of the barium, and that defect will be seen there at the site of that. Associated with the diminished peristalsis and early lesions and lesions in the upper part of the stomach, isn't it? But in the upper part where the fundus is there, the gastric notch is there, and above the fundus there is a what? The mesothelial appearance is there. Then the gastroscopy, it shows the growth. Multiple biopsies should be taken along with the gastroscopy. When you unreach the gastroscope, you will visualize the lesions, isn't it? And that multiple lesions will be shown. Then biopsy also should be taken. The explorative cytology, the gastric washing with the Ray's tube or centrifuge, and the sedimentation is examined there. We will find that there is a cancerous cells, isn't it? So this is called the explorative cytology. Means with the Ray's tube, the stomach should be washed, and with the Ray's tube you should aspirate. In the aspirated material, the cancerous cells may come there. Therefore, the all cancerous cell will be fall into the stomach, dislodged from the lesion, and that will comes into the content of the stomach there. Then a tetracycline fluorescence test is can also done there. Orally, administration of tetracycline are quickly absorbed by the rapidly growing cancer cells, and the cells stained yellow. Are the patient to take the tetracycline orally, and the cancerous cell have ability to what? Take this tetracycline and absorb them, and we take the contrast image, so we will find that yellow stained cells that indicating this is a carcinomatous cells. When all cells are seen in the ultraviolet light, they show yellow fluorescence, and this can either be seen by the gastroscopy or by the examining in the vitro the gastric, isn't it? Lastly, the laparotomy. Laparotomy is on there. If after all these investigations, what you have seen in the barium meal or this gastroscopy, explorative cytology, tetracycline procedure, if doesn't found the lesion there, then it is best to do that of the laparotomy. If the diagnosis is doubtful, early exploration should be always advised. Means how to open the abdomen and how to examine the stomach and the structures around the stomach, isn't it? For diagnosing or find out the lesions there. So you understand? So these are the investigations. Now, treatment. Almost for all cases, the choice of treatment is a surgery. But in some cases, the surgical treatment is also contraindicated. And the treatments are, so we'll see what treatment is there. The choice of treatment is a surgery, and two types of the surgery can be performed. One is the radical surgery, and second the palliative surgery. Radical surgery, the purpose of the radical surgery is that to eradicate the lesions completely, remove the lesions completely, isn't it? And remove the cancer. And it can be done by that the removing or excision of the structures that involve into the malignancy. Palliative surgery is just for the palliation. The cancerous lesion is not disturbed or not removed. But whatever the symptoms are to be developed or chemical features developed which are disturbing the life of the patient, that only will be relieved by the palliative surgery. We will see what is detail there. So here, but even though these surgeries are done in the case of the carcinoma of the stomach, but for this surgery also some contraindications will be there. What contraindications are there? The contraindications for the surgery are there. Metastatic liver disease means if the metastasis reach to the liver, the cancer reach to the liver, because if it once reach to the liver, there is no use of what? The doing the surgery of the stomach. That's why this is the first contraindication. Second, gross ascites. If the gross ascites indicating peritoneal dissemination. And third is distal metastasis, including the Virchow's node. If first one, if liver metastasis, second gross ascites, and third the distal metastasis means if cancer spread to or malignant tumor or carcinoma of the stomach spread to the other organs rather than the liver, to the distal part of that, is it right to the lung or to the other part of intestine, isn't it? Nose, isn't it? Then surgery is not useful. It's an contraindication. The next one is when on exploration it has been decided whether radical surgery can be performed or palliative. After exploration can be decided. And the contraindications to radical surgery means when the radical surgery is not done there. When first one, growth fixed to the posterior abdominal wall or to the mesentery, particularly at the origin of superior mesenteric artery, then the radical surgery should not be done. Second, nodes well fixed to the posterior abdominal wall, then again radical surgery should not be done, because there is no use of the surgery, radical surgery. Then liver metastasis, as already seen, and the widespread peritoneal dissemination. Do you understand? In such cases, we should not do the radical surgery. Now, the radical surgery, what about radical surgery? The radical surgery means that removal of the complete mass of the cancerous growth with 2 centimeter or half of the, at least half, 1 or a half of the inch of the healthy area of the stomach wall. Along with that, the excision of lymph node into which that affected part drains. Affected part drains. So that's why where to be done, the radical surgery of the stomach or radical gastrectomy is depend upon where is the growth there. So do you understand what is radical surgery? Removal of the mass along with the 1 or half inch of the healthy wall surrounding this cancerous growth, along with the removal or excision of the lymph node into which that affected part drains. You understand? And according to the site, the surgery is done, and these are what is the lower radical gastrectomy for the growth of the lower part of the stomach. If the growth is present in the lower part of the stomach, then the lower radical gastrectomy is to be done, and the subpyloric and suprapyloric lymph node are excised. Then upper radical gastrectomy for the growth of the upper part of the stomach. If the growth is present to the upper part, then the upper radical gastrectomy is done. And the lymph nodes, that is pancreatico-gastric splenic lymph node is usually excised because that area drains there. And then the total radical gastrectomy along with the wall of the organ. When there is that, the whole of the stomach is resected in cases if growth is inflicting widely with the whole wall of the stomach. And the excision of all the lymph nodes into which the stomach drains. All suprapyloric, subpyloric, pancreatico-splenic, then the cardiac, isn't it? Pyloric, all these ciliac, all lymph nodes has been excised out. That is called the total radical gastrectomy, isn't it? The next one. So this is a radical one. This is the radical. Then the palliative surgery. If, as already we have been seeing, if the radical gastrectomy is contraindicated, if you cannot do it in there, there is no use of it on, then for the giving the symptomatic relief, you can do do the palliative surgery. The palliative surgery for what? For inoperable cases. Inoperable operation cannot be done there, isn't it? And it can be done in the pyloric growth and in the growth of the upper part of the stomach. In the pyloric growth, you can do these two operations there. One is gastrojejunostomy, which is routine one, that simple gastrojejunostomy. Second, the device exclusion operation. The gastrojejunostomy is done in where? But what complications of it is there? The bleeding from the growth still continues, loss of the appetite and vomiting continues, and the stomach quickly infected by the growth. So that's why many of the people, they prefer the second operation. This is what? The device exclusion operation. Device exclusion operation. In this operation, what we do? The stomach is transected well above the growth and the distal cut. This is distal cut end of is closed, and a gastrojejunostomy is then performed between the proximal cut end and the stomach and jejunum. And the disadvantage of the simple gastrojejunostomy can be avoided, or you can overcome on this one there, isn't it? So that's why this exploding can be done. So what is the difference between this? Here simply the stomach is connected to the what? Or pyloric end of the stomach is connected to the jejunum. Not gastrojejunostomy, simple one. But here the exclusions means what? Where growth is removed, and where proximal part of the stomach is connected to the jejunum. This complication can be avoided. Which complication? These ones can be added. Second B, for inoperable growth in the upper part of the stomach, and for the leather bottle stomach. This esophageal jejunostomy is directly, the esophagus can be connected with the jejunum. So for inoperable cases where growth is put in the upper part of the stomach or in the leather bottle stomach, so this can be performed. One is esophageal jejunostomy and second is a purpura jejunostomy for feeding, where there is a whole stomach is involved. And second one, if the whole stomach is involved, it becomes what? The leather bottle stomach, isn't it? Where the stomach doesn't get contractile, due to thickening of the wall of the vessels. In such cases, whole stomach is resected out, right? And where esophagus is directly connected with jejunum. Second, permanent jejunostomy for the feeding purpose, directly can be connected in the upper part there. Then for the inoperable growth at the cardiac end, here an esophageal tube is used for esophageal cancer, as in case of the esophageal tube, which directly connected to the either the rest of the part of the stomach where it is not involved, or to the jejunum. And in this way, the surgery can be done, and this is a palliative surgery, either the gastrojejunostomy in case of pyloric growth or the divine exclusion of the operations. While in the upper part of the growth, the esophageal jejunostomy or the permanent jejunostomy. And for the cases where at the cardiac end there is a cancer, isn't it? The tube is kept over, and esophageal tube is used for esophageal cancers, is passed down to the stomach, isn't it? Through the growth, patient is fed through it, and directly this tube will be passed the food into the either the rest of the part of the stomach, either to the esophageal jejunostomy, direct to the jejunum. Do you understand? So this is a radical and a palliative surgery, where we can do the radical surgery. You can't do the radical surgery, then do the palliative surgery, isn't it? So this is about the treatment of the gastric carcinoma. So hope you understood the complete gastric carcinoma of the stomach, isn't it? Go through the lecture, prepare yourself properly, and watch both of the part together, the first part and the second part. So you will get the carcinoma of stomach properly. Okay, thank you for watching.